Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. As many of you know, I am in the middle of an 1830s project extravaganza right now, and there is a very important element needed to get that right 1830s look when you're talking about undergarments, and that is that you need super starchy petticoats. With the super starchy petticoats, it just fills out the skirts and does a really great job. And so for my current 1836 project, what that means is that I will have a corded petticoat and a multi-tiered ruffled petticoat that cause that whole bell shape of the skirts, no other supports. But they need to be starchy. And right now, they're not so starchy. So these are my petticoats currently. This is a corded petticoat, if you can believe it. Like, it can be shoved up in a little ball. It's so not starchy. To be honest, I don't know the last time I starched it, but it was a very, very long time ago. And this one is my ruffled petticoat, which, although there's a lot more fabric involved, again, it is like so completely limp and sad. So it's time to starch these petticoats. Now, the first step in starching petticoats is that you want to wet them entirely. The best idea is to actually wash them. So I am going to shove these in the wash. I think I'm actually going to throw in my bustle petticoat at the same time, and maybe even my slimmer 1830s petticoat, just because I know all of those need starching. So I think I'm going to do like 4 petticoats, just throw these in the wash so they get fully cleaned and fully wet. You're not going to put them in the dryer, and then it will be time to starch them. So today in this video, we are going to go ahead and experiment with starch. I am going to look at some tutorials online and get to starching. I am going to be using food grade cornstarch from the grocery store to do this whole experiment, and it doesn't take that long, but it does take some effort. So let's go get starching. So I guess I should say that this is a little bit more on the side of experiment than it is on tutorial, because it's been a very long time since I have starched my petticoats, as I mentioned, so I don't entirely remember every single little thing. And also I'm doing 4 petticoats at a time, and the tutorial that I found, which is from the Dreamstress, it's talking about 1 petticoat at a time. So I figured, why not just try and multiply it by 4? See if I could do all 4 at once. So that's what we're going to try. I'm starting out, I've got 16 ounces, which is 2 cups of cornstarch, which is great because that's exactly 4 times the recipe. And to begin with, the recipe has you mix that cornstarch in a little bit of water fully, like in a pot that you're going to boil. So that is what I'm doing first. Once that's fully mixed, then we are going to bring it to a boil and let it boil for 1 to 1.5 minutes. It might take a little bit more time because it's more cornstarch and more water, so we shall see how it goes. But basically with 2 cups of cornstarch, it would wind up being 16 cups of water for heavy starch. So we are gonna give that a try. So rookie mistake from the get-go, I added my 4 cups of water, my initial 4 cups of water, with my 2 cups of starch, and then I went to go get the tripod and filmed that little intro bit. And then I came back to the cornstarch and water mixture, which you are supposed to have had like super been mixing during that time, and it was solid. So solid, in fact, that I could not stir with a spatula at all. I had to break it up with my hands. I did that. Now I am mixing in my second 4 cup of water, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the stove on to get it to start boiling. Once I broke it up with my hands, it did turn into a complete liquid. So it took some glopping, and it was, you know, it's a weird texture. If you've never felt cornstarch before, it's a very odd texture when it's in the water. But now I can go ahead and bring it to a boil while still stirring. Every time I'm not filling up the measuring cup at the sink, I'm going to be stirring this because I think otherwise it's going to turn back to a solid. Where's Mrs. Weasley and her self-stirring pot when you need it? So I have to admit I'm a little bit concerned because first off, when I add the other 4 cups, it's not going to be quite full in the pot when I put in that last 4 cups, but it's going to be pretty close to full. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that because it's not going to have much room to boil because, you know, boiling makes it get even bigger basically. And then I'm also a little bit concerned that this doesn't seem like enough liquid to fully saturate for petticoats. So yeah, that's a little bit of a concern because once this has been brought to a boil, I am actually going to go dump it out in my laundry sink in the garage. So we're gonna get even worse lighting than here in the kitchen. And in the laundry sink, it's a pretty big, wide sink. And so I figured it would do really well with doing all this. I've already cleaned out the sink and everything too, so it's nice and clean. But I don't feel like this water is going to go very far, so I hope I don't have to mix it with additional water, but I am a little bit concerned also, especially because I used all of my cornstarch in this mixture. So you do want to continue stirring constantly the entire time that you are boiling this mixture, and of course that means you can't put a lid on it, so that means that this 16-cup pot of water is going to take 20 years to boil. So I guess I didn't think that part through about like combining this recipe, because yeah, this is gonna take a long time, but if I stop stirring, it will probably turn back into solid again. So I'll check in with you in 3 years. We are definitely starting to get very thick and gloopy, like just all of a sudden it's kind of turning into this glue consistency instead of the liquid. I have been hearing boiling from underneath, but as you can see, that kind of pop was kind of like the first pop of actual boiling that I was getting. So yeah, I don't know whether or not this has now been going on for a minute to a minute and a half. This is way, way thicker than I remember ever having this occur. So I'm a little bit worried that this is extremely thick, heavy starch, and I used maybe like half of this last time, because wow, this is like real thick. So I think I am going to go ahead and run this out to the laundry sink. Hopefully I can get this poured and like a petticoat in and the camera moved all at the same time. I probably should have moved you beforehand and not shot this last bit, because I think we might be out of time for that. So yeah, let's go dunk some petticoats. I have a feeling I'm gonna wind up mixing in additional water because this is just a lot. Okay, I have a mountain of petticoats right here, and I have mixed in additional water. I feel like it wasn't enough, but at the same time, this is cooling like so fast, so I really have to take care of this ASAP. So we'll see if I have to wind up mixing in any additional water, but I've got my huge laundry sink here, and we are going to try to dip this big ruffled petticoat first, which is probably not what I should do because this is going to absorb the most. Now, if you were using just the boiling mixture, obviously don't put your hands directly into it, but I did wind up diluting this with that water, and it started off, unfortunately, fairly cold. It did get hot, but not boiling. So my super hot boiling mix is no longer super hot boiling. And I've got all sorts of other fuzzes in here, which when you starch other fuzzes into something, they become part of the something. So as I'm seeing other fuzzes, I'm pulling them out. Anyway, this is now, I think, real nice and coated. Oh my God, it's heavy. And you are supposed to wring this out. So luckily this is a laundry sink. We've got kind of a washboard situation here on the back. Oh shoot, it's dripping down the front. And so I'm going to try to wring as much out that way just by kind of rolling and pulling against this washboard, and hopefully that will let enough of the water run down that I can then hang it, because I have a like bungee laundry line strung up, but I am really worried about, with the weight of this, that is not going to be at all strong enough to hang these petticoats on. And of course I'm starting with by far the heaviest one too, because it has the most fabric and therefore the most room to absorb water. Okay, we have, I think, the full length rolled up now. It is heavy, and I'm trying to squeeze out as much as possible, but yeah, it's real heavy. And we're gonna see just how well this does on my bungee cord, because otherwise I have to come up with other places to hang this stat. And of course it's getting dark outside, so that's not really an option. There is not sunshine to hang it in here. So it did not even remotely hang on the bungee cord. And then I went to go hang it on some of my strongest clip hangers that have like the best grip. Not even close to being able to hold that petticoat up. So right now it is literally draped over the shower bar in the bathroom, and I'm going to continue with the other petticoats because I don't want the mixture to cool. Now that said, just feeling the mixture just now, it honestly feels like most of the starch is on that one petticoat. So maybe this whole doing 4 petticoats at a time thing, maybe it doesn't work. We're gonna see. I am doing the corded petticoat now, so we'll see how that goes because I figured that kind of needed like the second most amount of starch ideally. And then I will probably do the bustle petticoat. Actually, to be honest, I do all of them at the same time. These petticoats are so much smaller. So we're gonna take the bustle petticoat and stick it in there too. Maybe there's not room for the smaller 1830s yet. Nah, let's do it. Let's live on the wild side. Okay, so I now have all 3 of these small ones in there, and I can just kind of let them absorb while I think I will go wring out the big ones some more and figure out hanging situations for all of these. And then I think I'll probably just show you them hanging and show them to you when they're dry, which is gonna be tomorrow. So these 3 were all light enough that I could actually just hang them on that clothesline. So the clothesline suspended there, it's on the coat rack in the middle so it doesn't sink too far, and then it's over there. So that's pretty good with these 3. I will still have to figure out the other one, but I think it's going to involve lots of hangers and safety pins. So this is what I've done for the setup for the big ruffly petticoat. I did just stick the fan under it because it has been 2 hours and this is still like just as wet as when I hung it up. I also went around and kind of tried to pull out the ruffles a little bit because they were all super, super bunchy. But yeah, this is hanging on 2 sets of hangers, and it's actually pinned to the hangers too because I wasn't trusting the clips. So I really hope that this dries by tomorrow, or that this and all of the other petticoats really dry by tomorrow. So one of the 4 petticoats is still drying just a little bit, but as you can see, these other 3 are standing up completely on their own. So this is always one of the most entertaining things about starching petticoats is you get these weird ghosts in your house. But basically these are all now completely dry and they are ready to press. Now I've heard mixed things. Some people say press it when it's just a little bit damp. Some people say press them when they are dry, but maybe either, Lion, really? But either use steam when you press it, a lot of steam, which does decrease the starching like a little bit, or you can also spritz it just a little bit first and then press it. So you do want a little bit of water involved. But I wound up having to wait until they were fully dry because these 3 dried overnight. So it is the next day now. The other one has like 1 ruffle left to dry, and I am going to get to pressing. So this is what it looks like with just the corded petticoat once it is starched and semi-pressed. Honestly, I can't get this entire petticoat pressed because this is my ironing table, so I don't have one of those narrow, you know, home ironing tables, and this skirt is not actually wide enough that I can really get much of it on the table. So I pressed like the bottom third of this skirt, and then I did actually up here, I kind of steamed it just with the iron, not with the steamer, but I kind of steamed around, and that helps to loosen it a little bit because some of these kind of were wanting to really fold out in certain ways. But this is what that looks like. So now let's add the tiered petticoat on top of it. And here it is with the tiered petticoat. So as you can probably tell, it takes up pretty much like all of the space in my sewing room. And that is just a corded petticoat and tiered petticoat on top, but they're the highly starched corded and tiered petticoat. So this has definitely softened up a lot since it was like able to stand on its own, but it's still really quite stiff and papery. I mean, you can hear that sound. And this was just made out of, I think, regular cotton. I can't quite remember if I made this out of anything special or not. I think this might even be muslin, or else it's quilting cotton. So it is really your basic cotton. And yeah, this is like quite the floof. I mean, look at those ruffles. By the way, when I press this, I'm only pressing these tiered ruffles. It's just too hard for me to get the iron into the parts that they are attached to underneath. So I have 3 tiers of ruffles, and then the inside still has that full starch. It doesn't have like the smoothness of the pressing, because that's what happens when you press it. It gets smoother and it gets a little bit softer. So I do kind of have the super papery in there as well. And I press the waistbands too, because the waistbands get like really wrinkled, and that'll ease out a little bit as I wear it. But there you have it. That is what happens when you starch your petticoats. So I just wanted to show that starching is literally so stiff with your petticoats. I've just worn this all to go take pictures of my final dress, and the petticoats were so heavily starched that I had to step like 3 or 4 feet up and over this pile to get out of the dress. Well, I think this was a successful experiment. My petticoats are super starchy and they just feel wonderful, and I'm very happy, and I hope that I don't have to do this again for a while, so I'm gonna take good care of my starchy petticoats. So overall, this experiment was a success. So I hope that this video was helpful for you and that you feel confident now that you can go out and make some pettighosts for your own self. And I'm going to leave the instructions that I kind of did for this down in the description below, as well as a link to the Dreamstress blog where I got my kind of inspiration instructions for a lot less petticoats at one time down below in the description. So do be sure to check that out and let me know if you plan to start your own petticoats now, or if you have a completely different method that you use, let me know that as well. So if you liked this video though, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs out on Tuesdays and other costuming content like this out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi accounts down below. And I'd like to give a super big special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Heidi, Miyakyu, and Sharon. So thank you all so much for joining me this week. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing! Not full, but... Hi Mom, now I'm recording a YouTube video. Can I call you back?
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye!